Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles, your favorite true crime podcast. I am Donnie, and with me is a man that wants everyone to know there are no healthy decisions that happen in the kitchen after 10 p.m.
Ain't that the damn truth?
It's Dale. Standing there with the refrigerator door open.
Beer and a bowl of ice cream.
Yeah.
You gotta have it, man.
Only you, man. Only you.
Heck yeah, beer and birthday cake, something.
Oh, yeah, nachos and ice cream.
There you go.
Nacho ice creams.
What you gotta get?
That ought to be a thing.
Well, it is a thing.
Nacho ice cream?
Yeah. I seen a thing the other day. It was like a little tray, and the little chips were like waffle cone pieces, but they were round like chips.
Oh.
And then the dipping sauce was chocolate and caramel, and then it had like soft serve ice cream in the corner over here. I'm going, man, I need a food truck with just that.
Yeah. What's going on today, dude?
You, man.
No, I'm
Same old.
I'm just here.
How you feeling?
Feel great.
Good, man. Good.
Yeah, we had to cancel. Man, I hated canceling.
I know you do.
I was sick.
I know it kills you.
I was snotting and couldn't talk. I lost my voice.
I was waiting for you to call me and go, look, let's just do it. And then you posted that we're going to cancel. I'm like, ooh, it's got to be getting bad.
Oh, it was bad. I actually lost my voice for about a day and a half. I couldn't. My wife was enjoying it, though.
It's probably peaceful around here.
It was, yeah. It's pretty quiet. Yeah.
What we got going on today?
Well, you got any good shout-outs or anything you might want to talk about?
Well, we just might.
Hey, bring it on.
How about that?
Bring that clap on.
How about clap off?
Okay.
Anyway, we do have an Apple Podcast 5-star review here today. This comes from M Dash. This is EM_Dash. And it says, my Monday obsession. This show gives me something to look forward to each and every morning. The stories are incredibly captivating, and the hosts deliver them with the perfect combination of empathy, levity, and detail.
Yeah.
Not to mention cuteness and humor. I made that part up.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you so much to M Dash for that 5-star rating. We appreciate it. Thanks so much for taking the time to throw it out there. We really, really appreciate it.
We do.
And it helps us tremendously.
Yeah, it helps people find us.
Thank you.
It does. If anybody wants to be like M6 and go to Apple Podcasts, you can write something in the box and click 5-star, and we'll give you a shout out.
That's M Dash, not M6.
M dash.
Yeah. M_Dash.
That's all it is.
Yeah, M_Dash.
M_Dash.
Which is EM_DASH.
Oh, okay.
It's fancy.
Well, I don't know where I got 6, but it probably had something to do with this episode.
It may be.
It may be.
Look at you.
Yeah, because, man, we got a good one.
We do.
Yeah. On the last episode, we covered Tom Monfils.
Yeah, man. Crazy case. Crazy.
He was working at the James River paper mill there in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yes, he was.
And he died there in that mill. His body was found in that pulp,
right, as far as we know.
In that pulp vat.
Unless they took him in the parking lot and brought him back.
Yeah. But he was found there in that pulp vat dead with a 50-pound weight tied around his neck.
Correct.
Yeah, we covered that last week. And
the more we talked about it, the madder I got, because it's just so confusing.
It's such a crazy case, and we've got a couple guys on the show tonight.
I can't wait.
They are the host of the Monfils 6 podcast. They are from Wisconsin.
They are.
They are from that area. And their podcast is dedicated to the Tom Monfils case.
Only.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're going to give them a plug at the end of this and include their episodes and all their stuff in our socials and in our show notes. But I want to introduce Damon Schneider and Mike Putchel. They are the host of the Monfils 6 podcast.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Means a lot.
Thank you, guys.
It's going to be great. And we'll try not to step all over each other.
Yeah, there's four of us talking, so we'll take it slow and just talk about Tom Monfils a little bit.
That's right.
From you guys and your research, describe what kind of person Tom Monfils was.
Damon, do you want to take that? Or do you want me to do it?
Or you can both do it.
You start, Mike.
Okay. So, of course, just a little bit of background. So, yeah, Damon and I are both from Wisconsin. When this happened, when Tom died, I was not aware of any of this. I was just a baby. So this is obviously something that I learned about much later. Lots of the information that we gathered is largely from a book that we've referenced in our show. I don't know if you two, Donnie and Dale, have you heard of this book, The Monfils Conspiracy?
We have heard of it, but we have not read it.
We have not read it.
Okay. So, they go into quite a bit about this whole case, and they're from Wisconsin too, the two authors. And, getting to your question, so the vibe that I get from Tom is that I think in some ways he led kind of two different lives in a way, and I'll describe that in a little bit here. When he disappeared, there's a lot of reports, especially from his wife, Sue, that Tom was well liked at work, and she was under the impression that he was a hard worker, and through interviews with his coworkers later and talking about his work ethic and his track record at work, that really wasn't the case. That there was actually, Tom seemed to have a really small group of people that he got along with and kind of identified with his humor style, because that's one of the big things about Tom, is that it sounds like he had a unusual sense of humor that was kind of off-putting for many people. It sounded like he had quite a dark sense of humor, and a lot of his jokes would fall flat with many people and almost have people questioning his mental state in some ways. He went pretty far with some of these jokes, and so there was that element to it. And then as far as his work ethic, there was inconsistencies there too with kind of what his wife thought and what was actually happening at work. It seems like many people didn't really respect Tom's work ethic, and I don't want to say that he was a bad employee, but it definitely seems like Tom liked to do things his own way. And that's going to be an issue when you're a union member, and if you want to move up in the ranks and get promotions, you kind of have to do things by the book. And that was kind of how his, I guess you could call him a work rival, but the main player in the Convictions, Keith Kutzka, that's how he did things. He was a very by-the-book guy, and he was more successful, frankly, than Tom at work. He did receive promotions. He had one of the upper-level jobs in the mill. And I think you guys had mentioned in your episode that Tom started there in 1983. Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
So he had been there for 9 years, or almost 9 years, and he never really quite moved up in the company. And to me, that says a lot about his work ethic. I think he really did like to do things his own way, and I think some people would even say that he kind of slacked off a little bit, and there were reports of people who flat out said that they requested transfers because they didn't want to work with him.
Wow.
So there were some inconsistencies there, and that's why in one of our episodes I was surprised to hear that, because as you guys know, and as you mentioned, that Tom was in the Coast Guard.
Yes.
And to me, if you're a military service member, that history of being a Coast Guardsman, and then his history of his work style at the mill, that to me doesn't match. Like, if you're going to stay in the military, you have to go by the orders, and I'm just surprised by that. I would really like to hear from people or know what his service record was like in the Coast Guard. You guys had mentioned that he got like a medal or something like that for his service.
Yeah.
really surprised by that because that seems inconsistent with his work style at the mill from numerous accounts from his coworkers.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like he's just kind of doing what he had to do to get by, right? Instead of just going there and getting after it, right?
Right, and he also said that another angle to that is, and this goes along with why he made the phone call about Keith stealing the cord. He was known as a backstabber. He was known as somebody who would be conniving and not confront somebody face to face. He would do it behind their back.
That'll get you a lot of friends.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Mike, as Mike was saying, the paper machines had 4 positions, which would have been the machine tender, which would have been the top position, the back tender, which is the sort of second in command, and then you have the third hand and the fourth hand. And Tom, more often was just the fourth hand, so the lowest position. And we actually have a little story. Mike, do you want to tell the story of Tom and the other employee about their positions at the factory?
Yeah, kind of an idea of going back to my comment about the backstabbing in a way. There's a documented story where he was working on a machine with an employee, and Damon, do you remember what position the other employee had?
He was the machine tender.
Oh, he was the lead? Okay.
Yeah.
And the machine tender employee had asked Tom to do something, and Tom refused to do it, and he made a comment like, hey, you better watch out because pretty soon I'm going to have your job and you're going to be where I am. And that's just a really weird thing to say. And it kind of shows you that what did he really mean by that? I think because he's not going to move up with his work ethic. I mean, that he didn't move up. And so I think that kind of shows that he liked to find ways to get people in a different position, like get them out of there and get himself in.
Do you know what those different job titles? What was their jobs specifically? The 4 guys.
Yeah, Damon, do you want to talk more about that?
I mean, I just wondering what they did because I've seen the titles, but I have no idea what they do.
From what I gather, most of the day is they're just they're waiting for the machines to do these turnovers. So the machines never stop. They just keep pumping out the paper, and they have to get the paper from the machine to a core. And so a lot of the day they're just standing around in the coops relaxing it. But then when these turnovers occur, they all have to work together to get the paper onto the core. It can be done with just 3 people, but it's very difficult. 2, it's almost impossible. But if 3 are only on a machine at the same time, they actually get the pay of the 4th person who wasn't there.
So basically, they're just swapping out the roles and then wait and swap out the roles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if there's a paper break, they tend to that. They try to get that handled as quickly as possible because it's a work disruption.
Right. Okay.
I just wanted to mention too about Tom's sense of humor. There was a bulletin board at work, and Tom, if an embarrassing article would be printed in the newspaper, let's say, for instance, an employee got a DUI, drunken driving, he would post that, just to kind of be a smartass. And there was actually one incident too that a married couple worked at James River, and they had a premature baby, and the Green Bay Press-Gazette ran a story on them, and Tom had gone through that story and marked it up in sort of negative ways to make it embarrassing for the couple, and Tom almost lost his job for that, but the husband actually said, I don't want Tom to lose his job, but he needs mental health. Someone needs to see about him. So in terms of could he have committed suicide, I think yes, he could have.
Wow.
So what was Keith Kutska like? You talked about him just a little bit at the beginning of this, but how was his coworkers describing him and him at work.
Yeah, we know he's a big union guy, and it never missed a meeting and all that stuff, which has probably helped him in his step up. But how was his demeanor and his work ethic?
Mike, why don't you describe Keith's tattoo?
Oh, was that the one with the... you got to remind me, what was the phrase? It was the dice. But
Born to win?
Oh, born to win? Yeah. Yeah, he has a tattoo. Is it on his arm?
Yeah, on his arm.
That says born to win, and then with dice on it.
Right, where usually you would see it say born to lose. So yeah.
I think that gives a good idea, though, of kind of his confidence.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing, but it really does kind of give a picture of the way he operates. So yeah, Damon, that's a good example. But another thing with Keith is, unlike Tom, I do think that while not everybody may have liked Keith, I do think that he was well respected. I do get that impression. It seems that he was a very reputable employee, and again, as opposed to Tom, that's why Keith did move up in the company. And like you mentioned, he was involved in the union activities a little bit more than others, and he took issue with people who weren't so involved in union activities, people who didn't attend the meetings and really just came around whenever there was a pay change or meetings regarding pay or schedules and stuff like that. He was very involved in a lot of aspects of the union, and he definitely was a guy who, unlike Tom, would confront people directly and didn't have an issue with that. And I think that's really kind of the whole core of this story, is that that's where this conflict really comes into play, is that in that regard of personalities, like Tom and Keith really are opposites as far as how they deal with problems.
So you speaking of the union, there were 2 unions there in the mill that I'm aware of. How did that work out? I mean, some belong to one union and some people belong to another union?
It's weird to us because there's no union here.
We don't have unions down here. So explain the union part of it. How did that work there?
Yeah, do you want me to answer that, Damon?
Sure.
Okay. So regarding the union situation specifically at that mill, that I'm just kind of getting from the book too, but I'll talk about unions in general as well. So yeah, they did have 2 unions at that time. I have no idea the situation now, but at that time, like you said, they had 2 unions, and you're right, they did represent different groups of employees. So the Local 327 was for the paper machine department employees, just them. And then Local 213 was pretty much everything else. So the converting of paper product, the shipping of the product, the paper pulp, and the maintenance departments. So again, basically everything else. I don't fully know why they have it divided like that. I don't know the reasoning for that. But they did have the 2 unions at that time, and as you know, the Monfils 6 were not all from the same union. They were members of different unions, each one. So, there's that element of it too. That's going into the whole union conspiracy assertion from the DA.
Yeah.
And then just as far as unions go, I mean, with that union at the mill, I really understand now why Tom was so fearful, in a way, about being found out if he made the call. Because at first I didn't understand why he was so scared about losing his job. But then I connected it that this mill is considered a closed shop union. So if you are kicked out of the union for any reason, which he probably would have been if he got the union charges, he wouldn't have been able to work there. You have to be a union member to work at the mill.
Wow.
So, and that's not something that is allowed anymore in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a right-to-work state now, ever since 2015. But back then, that was legal to require people to be not only pay union dues, but be a member of the union. And so I understand now why he was afraid of losing his job. I mean, I certainly think there were other job opportunities he could have gotten if he was fired, but I think in some ways there is a legitimate worry because, you know, I'm not from Green Bay, and I certainly wasn't around Green Bay in 1992, but I think if you weren't a union member or you were kicked out of the union, I have a feeling that wouldn't look good on your work history. It seems
sense.
like kind of a tight-knit community, and it's all about reputation in that type of situation. So I do think he legitimately would have had a problem finding other employment. But that's just a little bit about unions. And,
Okay.
you know, my parents were both union members. They both worked in manufacturing. My mom worked at Rockwell Automation, and then she was a member. I actually have her union manual right here that she gave me. She was part of United Electrical Radio and Machine Workers of America, and she just assembled parts for mostly circuit boards for elevators. And so she was a member of a union her entire career, and kind of just a little tidbit about the power of unions or why they can be very helpful. My mom was laid off from her job at Rockwell. It was Allen Bradley at the time. And she was laid off there for like 7 years.
Wow.
And she had worked there, though, for 15 years prior to being laid off. And one of the union privileges that she had was that if you are laid off from your job, you are able to be eligible to come back to work. If the job is back open, you are eligible to come back. You get half of the time that you worked there prior. So
Okay.
she had been there 15 years, so 7.5 years. So she just made it in. They called her back 7 years later, and she got her job back just like she used to have. So I don't think that would have been something that would have happened if a union was not involved.
No.
That was a union privilege.
Okay.
So yeah, there's definitely some benefits there, and I do think it is a pretty tight-knit community, though. And if you're a union member, I think you have some real benefits looking for other jobs. But I think it can be hard to get into.
Okay. I was just curious how that worked. I didn't, we don't have unions here, so I didn't know exactly who belonged to what union up there, and so it makes a little bit more sense
Yeah,
now.
and it was also, wild because, it always comes up that the union seemed like they were trying to help Kutska, a little bit. Well, play the tape, get a witness, do this, but they weren't helping Tom on the other side. So it's like we didn't know if they were two different unions or if they belonged to the same one or what. So it's kind of confusing to us.
Yeah, and just a comment about that, too. I don't know what the procedure is for the way they would deal with a situation like that, but I thought that was a very odd way of handling that situation, where they're basically asking for a confrontation,
Yes.
in my view. And to me, that seems like, in some ways, the worst way of dealing with it. And because it sounds like you guys know the details where Marlon Charles, he essentially told Keith to get him to admit it.
Right.
And
have a
to
witness.
me, that's really weird.
Yeah.
That is really,
especially to me,
super confrontational. And it seems like something that you'd want the union president to deal with privately with Tom, not have employees just confronting each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a setup. Especially when they're talking to the guy who started the whole damn thing by stealing, really.
Right. Exactly.
From your you guys' research, was there any kind of beef between Tom Monfils and Keith Kutzka before this? Did they butt heads on anything else? Because it seems like it's just a big jump into Keith stealing some electrical cable and then Tom ratting him out. And do you know any history?
As far
between
as we know that there was no history between them. It looks like it probably had something to do that they were at the James River plant. They wanted to go from 5-day work week to a 4-day work week, and Tom was for that, and Keith was very much against that. And so Tom had devised this as a way to get Keith fired, so Tom could have his way.
So, question about that.
Yeah, and I'll add too.
Go ahead.
I'd like to add too that, like Damon said, I think that is definitely part of it. Why Tom was having an issue with Keith, why he turned him in essentially, and this is just my read of Tom, what I get from all the accounts. I think Tom was a super private person. It's documented that he didn't even share this situation with his wife. All this phone call stuff with the police. She didn't know about any of this. And so he was going through all this privately. And I think that he just kept a lot of things to himself. And again, this is just my reading of him. It's my opinion completely. I just think that Tom extremely disliked Keith. I think they butted heads. Tom would go on kind of making it seem like, yeah, Keith, I don't have a problem with you. You're a nice guy. But then behind his back, he would be thinking of, what can I do to get this guy in trouble?
Also, too, we speculated that Keith being a machine tender, so having the top job, if he gets fired, that opens up an opportunity for Tom to move up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense, too.
Question about all that. Do you know if the hours ever changed after all this?
During the course of a month, in terms of did that rule ever go through? I do not know if that happened. Do you, Mike?
I thought I remembered reading something about it, but I can't remember if they were successful in making that change or not. So I don't know.
Yeah, we were just talking today, and Donnie goes, I just really wonder if they ever got the damn hours changed or not after all this.
Did they go to a certain schedule or not? And another question I have, too, about Keith Kutzka. He took the electrical cable. Could he have taken that electrical cable if he'd have went through the right channels and filled out the paperwork for that?
Or is that something that they wouldn't allow, because being it he wouldn't have it cut from that roll?
Yeah, that's one of the more ironic, tidbits, is that if he had filled out just a form saying that he wanted that piece of scrap, he would have gotten it, and all of this would have been avoided.
That makes no...
Yeah, we don't know. With the amount of cord that he took, which sounded like a substantial amount, I don't know if he would have been approved, but regardless, I know he didn't fill out the form, and I don't know why he needed it so urgently.
Right.
But he didn't follow the protocols, and that's one of the big things that really gets me irritated about this whole case. Is I don't really have an issue with Keith as a person, and I certainly don't think that he killed Tom. But the thing that really bugs me about Keith is that he continued to lie to everybody about taking the cord. You know, he told people that he didn't take it, and we know that he did.
Yes,
and he goes on this vendetta to get the guy who turned him in, and all along, I mean, the guy who turned him in was right, you know, and here he is coming in so self-righteous and entitled to get Tom in trouble for doing something that Tom was right about.
right.
That's the biggest issue for me with this.
Well, and on top of that, you know, once they did arrest him for that, he got $140 fine, and he's done. I'm like, dude, this guy lost his life over this damn argument over $140 fine.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That kind of ticked me off.
The fine was for the police that he had to pay?
Yeah, when they arrested him, took him to court, and he found guilty for stealing, it was a $140 fine.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
It was an article we'd read.
And I was like, man, $140. I mean, I don't know.
I just didn't know how much that cable would have cost. It would have been...
Well, I looked today and like a big 100-foot generator cable, which may have been, I don't know exactly what gauge these wires were, but it was like $160 for 100 foot, and I think he took 16 foot.
Yeah,
if I remember correct.
So, I wanted to point out, in regards to the documentary Beyond Human Nature, the voice actor who portrays Keith Kutska, it comes across, I thought, a little bit too blue collar, and in real life, Keith Kutska was more of an intellectual, and he actually had, he'd studied, Russian history, and he was well read, and
wow,
he outsmarted the Green Bay Police in some ways, and I think that's one of the reasons they wanted to get him so bad is because they had been outsmarted by a mill worker.
Why do you guys think the investigation was so sloppy into this? Because, me and Dale talked about this. Winkler came in and there was nothing really done. I mean, I believe I would have tested that vat, put some kind of maybe rubber dummy in that thing to see how it would respond to the vat circulation, and done some investigating. They didn't do anything like that.
I don't trust much of nothing Winkler says.
Why do you think that all this was so sloppy?
I think in general, at the time, I think the police force in Green Bay was poorly trained at doing their job, and it wasn't just one person; it was quite a few. In a future episode, we actually, the night that Monfils' body was found, the police didn't even lay down the yellow tape like they're supposed to until hours and hours later, and the police were assigning factory workers to guard certain parts of the plant, but those factory workers could have been involved with the murder of Tom. So it was just, there's video of that was taken of the police retrieving the body, and they made just about everything that they could have done wrong, they did wrong.
Yeah, in all respects too, including giving Keith Kutska a copy of the
tape.
The tape, yeah.
My God, that chaps my ass.
There's actually one point too on the videotape. On the police are actually trying to fish Tom's body out of the vat, but they're unsuccessful because they're unaware that it's tied. It's been weighted down. But you can imagine how much the body was in a state of decomposition, and so if they're trying to hook him with this hook, that how much damage they do to the body, and how much did that affect the autopsy?
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, you don't know what was caused by the vat and the hook or whatever they were trying to get him out with. Yeah.
So, do you guys think that pulp vat would have been kind of pink after somebody bled out in there? I mean, it's kind of odd to me. And which Donnie brought it up today, but I was like, yeah, the more you think about it, if someone was in there for however they got in there and they were kind of hacked up by the blade, you would think that from what all the video I saw of those vats was just like kind of white, pulpy stuff floating around. It looks like it would be more pink if you have a lot of blood loss in there. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Somebody would have noticed it.
The vat was the pulp had turned sort of a brown color.
Okay. Makes sense.
Is that why they decided to start looking in the vats, or do you know?
They started looking in the vats because that was the last place they could possibly look. They had searched every nook and cranny, and it was getting late, and it was sort of a last ditch thing, and just let's drain the vat.
Right.
Yeah.
How was Tom Monfils' connection to the rest of the guys that were convicted? Mike Pye and.
Were all those guys? Were they all heavy union guys too? All but Mike. All but Tom.
Yeah, I think Mike Piaskowski was moderately, or in fact, if I remember now, he was actually a steward at one point. So he kind of had different levels of involvement in the union. So I'd say he was probably just as involved and dedicated to the union as Keith. And then as far as the connection, though, with Tom to the rest of the group, Damon, do you recall the connections he had? I know he was working on the machine with Mike Piaskowski that day, right?
He was, yeah.
So there was a connection there. They were on the same machine that day. But then, like, the other people who were convicted, a lot of them really weren't. They rarely interacted with each other, and that's including Tom. Do you have any more info about that, Damon? How he was connected with some of the people?
As far as I know, Mike Pye and himself and Tom, he probably would have called themselves, acquaintances. I'm not sure that he really knew, he was friends with any of the other ones that were convicted. No.
Yeah, he like Dale Baston, for example. He was the eldest of the group that was convicted. He had one of the better jobs of the whole group. He had a lot of seniority. And I can't remember. He became the foreman. He was the working foreman in the mill, at least in the area that he was assigned to. So he had a pretty upper level management job in paper operation. I don't think that Dale really talked much with Tom. They wouldn't see each other, and I can't remember who exactly it was, but I know that there were two of the people that were convicted, two of the Monfils Six, who had never even met one another.
That is strange.
A lot of this seems like it comes from Keith Cutts going around and playing the tape and trying to stir a bunch of shit up and then getting everybody to go pick on Tom. And then whatever he wanted for that reason, just to take jabs at him or whatever. But it seems like that's the reason a lot of these guys got together, because of Keith trying to stir it up.
Right. Yeah, Keith was going around. My impression of all this is again, this is another reason why I would probably have a problem with working with somebody like him. He went around, made everybody. He basically was making his problem everyone else's.
Yes.
By saying, "Hey, this is what happened to me. I need you to care about it. I'm going to make you listen to this tape, even if you don't want to." And everybody's going to listen to this. And he wanted to humiliate Tom. He wanted to make everybody know what he did. And in some ways I can see the motivations for doing that, but that's pretty intense. Yeah. That level of revenge that he wanted to get.
While the whole time saying he didn't steal anything, right?
Right. Great point. Yep.
Yeah, kind of gaslighting everybody in that direction.
Right.
Yeah, Keith is such a victim. I'm such a victim. For me, I was suspended 5 days, no pay.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong. I completely blew through security, but I don't have to stop at security if I don't want to, because I'm above everybody else.
Right. That's kind of what I get to read from him. Yeah. I'm way up here. Y'all don't have to. I don't listen to you guys.
There's another question I had too. They were looking for Tom when he went missing, and his wife came out to the plant or the mill there looking around, and she'd actually went to a psychiatric hospital looking for Tom. Did he have? I mean, it was just specifically mentioned that she went there looking for him.
Did he have a history or something?
Did he have any kind of history of going for some mental health? Yeah.
You know about that, Damon?
I can't say that I do, but given the fact that the employee who he wrote about on the bulletin board suggested that Tom get mental health help, maybe he did. Maybe his wife had taken him to seek mental health, but I can't say that I specifically know that happened. No.
Right.
And I'll add too, just with the going to the mental treatment places. I think what Sue was doing there was, I think she was just looking everywhere.
That's the way I took it. She was just kind of covering all bases.
Yeah,
I've been everywhere else. Let me
right.
go check here. But the only problem I have with that is how would he got there? Because his car was there and everything, so he would have to walk, or somebody would have taken him from the plant, you would think. So someone would know where he was.
Right. That's true. Yeah, because I would imagine, I think, if I remember right, she had called regular hospitals too.
Okay.
Yes.
And they checked they had like a seasonal cottage, kind of just a little bit outside of town, like a couple counties over, and they looked there too. They thought that maybe Tom went there, so they really looked everywhere for him. And I think the mental treatment facilities was just covering the bases, like you said, but there could also be an element of, maybe she just suspected that because, again, Tom was secretive. Sue has been very quiet. She really hasn't said anything about this case publicly. Obviously, you get to know somebody much differently when you live with them.
Oh, yeah.
So
for sure.
Who knows what she knew.
Very true. So what was like at the plant post Tom Monfils being killed or him dying in that vat? What was the workplace like after that? Was there any kind of mandates going on or anything with the employees after that?
Well, the first thing they did is they brought in extra security, and basically to make the workers there feel safer. Mike, you thought maybe it had the opposite effect, though?
Yeah.
With the security?
Yeah, with the added security.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, what I said it was, and when we talked about it in our show, was it kind of goes into my view of what I think really happened here. But to me, like whenever there's an incident like this, or when there's a mass shooting, for example, to me, the added security, that doesn't always make me feel better personally, because, I mean, there's always the chance of a threat coming in.
Oh, yeah.
And security's not going to catch everything. You have to watch out for yourself. And so that's just kind of my comment with the security, is that, one, I don't really think there was a true threat there from Tom dying, but two, I don't really think that would have done much with fighting whatever the threat they thought was out there.
Yeah, it seems to
I
be
think the general mood of the plant, though, was pretty tense. The police were coming around asking questions, and they were actually even planting false stories about workers just to see if it would come back in a contradiction.
Really?
Yeah, rumors. They would go ahead and plant a rumor and then wait to see what it was when they got it back.
What the heck?
Ridiculous. I heard that on you guys' podcast today.
What kind of law enforcement is that?
Not good.
No, that's crap.
Just dirty.
That's dirty.
Dirty politics.
Dirty cop.
Yeah. What the hell?
Yeah.
I should mention when I saw the documentary Beyond Human Nature, this was about a year ago at the Milwaukee Film Fest. The person who bought my ticket, he was a little bit late in coming, and it started raining, and so I was at the front of the theater waiting for him to bring me my ticket, and there was someone standing next to me who I assumed it was the director, and he was also handing out tickets, and that was the case. And Detective Winkler showed up, and he was about 2 feet away from me, and the first impression that I got was this is not someone that I would want. If I was on public transportation, I would sit as far as away from this person as possible because it's got a really weird vibe from him.
Yeah, he doesn't seem very professional at all.
Yeah, he's got to give me weird vibes just watching the documentary. Yeah. You know, showing up like he's Humphrey Bogart, first of it, and then later is just a mountain man and talking about how he got it all done, and it's like, you know, like he got railroaded. I'm like, man, looks like to me you just made up this half of this, and that's why these guys are in prison.
It's funny that you mentioned like a persona that he was putting off because apparently when he was investigating the case in the 90s, he had like a known look that he was walking around with too. He liked wearing fedora hats and trench coats. I don't know what character. I'm trying to think of a character from a movie or something that liked doing that, but he definitely liked putting on a vibe and like
the Dick Tracy kind of vibe or something.
Yeah, Dick Tracy, he's Columbo. He thought he was Columbo.
Yeah.
One more question.
That's a good one. Right.
That's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. But you know the way he talked, he was the only one that would step up and take charge because nobody else wanted it. But there's probably a reason for that, I guess.
Well, and I'll add too, as much as I think his investigation was oddly handled, I do give him credit for speaking up, you know, because he's really the only one from this case, from the police department, who is talking about it.
Yeah, because he kind of got railroaded at the end of this thing, didn't he? Whether it was good or whether, you know, no matter what the outcome was, he just kind of got, you know, they gave him his standing ovation and then kind of kicked him in the ass and sent him out the door, you know, really, and then said,
right,
and then kind of said, we're going to let you go for this reason, and then when he tried to apply for benefits, it was like, sorry, you don't get them. So he kind of got railroaded too. So this thing is bad all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys,
and just
go ahead.
I just wanted to add too with the original question about changes in the mill after Tom died. There's another element too that I think you guys mentioned where the mill was really coming down on employees to make sure that they were cooperating with the investigation, and a lot of times that would mean losing your job if you were viewed as not cooperating, and I think that became an issue throughout the case, and it made me question what is the definition or their definition of cooperating, because a lot of times these people were cooperating, but they weren't necessarily agreeing with what the police wanted them to say, and so that was viewed as being uncooperative.
So if you're not telling me what I want to hear, then we gotta talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So these 6 guys go to prison. Were they all at the same prison, or were they different places?
They were at different prisons. I think one of them was even in a different state at the time. But yeah, different prisons.
Do any of you know? Keith Kutzka had a small infraction while in prison. It's never been stated what it was. I mean, does anybody have any idea of what it might be?
What? Good question. I don't know either. I often wondered.
So there is a database called Wisconsin Circuit Court Access, and I was just looking them up just prior to our conversation, so I can tell you what that says. So 11/22/2013, Keith Kutzka versus Bruce Bachherber, and then it looks like listed as plaintiffs are most of the Monfils 6, and it's a restraining order. So that's what I'm seeing, but there's not much listed beyond. But it looks like the other Monfils 6, most of them are listed, and then it's listed as other injunction / restraint order.
Okay, I mean, it said it was just a small infraction while in prison.
Right.
I mean, that could be anything from having some contraband in your cell, or I mean, they could gig you for just about anything, really.
Yeah.
But
I don't remember if they revealed what the infraction was. But I do remember him having, when they were reviewing his parole eligibility, that did come up. Yeah, I don't know what he did though. I don't know if that would be made public.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was it like watching that movie right there with everybody else when it came out? I'm sure it had to be pretty controversial when it came out, but how was that?
It was a packed house. It was a full house. So much time had passed.
Right.
Watching the film was sort of like going back in time for me because a lot of the newscasters from the Green Bay area I had grown up watching, when I was in high school. And so suddenly I was seeing people and hearing voices that I hadn't heard in a very long time. And it was kind of like, I remember that person, I remember that person, I remember. And listening to your podcast on the Monfils episode, I remember just thinking, to the average listener, there's so many names that you almost need like some sort of playbill to go along and follow everyone because your head just starts to spin. And that's how I was at the film. My head was just sort of spinning. I couldn't keep a track of all of the names of everyone and who did what. But there was a Q&A afterwards, and Detective Winkler stood up and D.A. Zukowski stood up, and they took some questions, and it didn't really seem like the audience wanted to challenge too much. If I could go back now, I would have nailed them with some really interesting questions, but at the time I think everyone was just sort of dazed by what they just saw.
Wow. It takes a lot of balls to stand up and take questions.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, if you were informed as you are now, it would be a lot better.
Yeah, it would be. For instance, Detective Winkler stood up and said that the agitator blade at the bottom of the pulp vat would have pushed Monfils' body away from him. But at the time when Monfils' body was found, both of his legs were missing below the knees, so that would mean that the Monfils 6 must have removed his legs before they tossed him in there. And this time period was so short to begin with that it would seem ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
And it was funny that D.A. Zukowski was standing, 5-6 feet away from Winkler when he made that statement, and he knew that wasn't true. He knew that Tom's body had gotten, messed up by the agitator blade, and he didn't say anything.
Wow. Speaking of that blade, Donnie said he looked it up today, and it was like 48 inches across, which would be like, 2-foot blades? And if you think about it, they say push it out, push it in, but it'd be just like a giant blender, would it not? So it's going to be pulling in and pushing away. That'd be the whole point it's in there, right? Keep stuff stirred up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd be like a giant blender.
One thing I wanted to ask, I think, Dale, you pointed out that Mike Pye, the only reason that he had been arrested and put on trial is that he had access to where the rope and weight were. But Tom Monfils actually had access to that area as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. But, I saw that. I think that was in the documentary where they went back and said, he was the only one that, by process of elimination, that could have went and got it, not being Tom.
Yeah, another point I wanted to bring up was Tom, part of his job in the Coast Guard was to retrieve the bodies of people who had committed suicide by drowning. And so he had encountered this a lot where he would find bodies with weight wrapped around them. And he talked with his coworkers and with his wife many times about these encounters that he had had. So,
oh man,
he knew what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just hard for me to buy that at all. I don't know who did what, and I definitely don't think all these guys should have went to prison. And I'm not going to ask you guys your opinion because I know you got a lot more to go. But to me, I just cannot wrap my head around the fact that somebody's going to say, okay, I'm really in trouble here. These guys are mad at me. I'm going to run back here and tie a weight on my head and jump in this toilet paper vat. It just, if I'm feeling that bad, I'm going to go home and go out to my cabin in the woods and we're done. I just, to me, it's just far beyond what I think you would do. Now, I don't know. I wasn't in his head, and I don't know, but
I just wanted to bring up the fact that when Tom initially made the phone call, this is maybe 10 days before, something like that, that in this time period, he's under a lot of pressure knowing that Keith is trying to get this tape. and realizing that he could be out of a job if Keith gets this tape. And I think he's having a lot of sleepless nights. And so one of the things that when the autopsy took place, they never did a psychological evaluation. And I think that was a big mistake because I think Tom was not in the right state of mind the morning of the 21st of November, 1992.
Well, that's possible, but he's also sitting in the break room with his feet kicked up reading the paper like nothing's wrong until the dude walks in with the tape player.
It says name that tune.
Yeah, and then everything goes south from there. But I still don't know why the dude would have lost his job, because it was legit. The dude stole the damn cord. It's not like he was making up, stuff about him. So, but that's, again, union stuff, I guess. But
yeah, and just to comment on that, too, is two things. One, I just want to make sure I get your point about, was your comment that he's sitting just chilling in the break room reading the newspaper like everything's fine? Was your point on that things legitimately did seem fine?
Yeah, I mean, he was okay till he realized it was on. Then he's actually has the tape.
Yeah. I mean, when I can completely put myself in his frame of mind, at least in that moment, because if you can imagine it, I mean, he was calling the police like 5 times,
right,
over like 5 days, making sure, double checking, triple checking that this tape won't be released, and every time he was assured that it wouldn't be. Correct. And so when he's sitting in the break room, he's thinking that his plan is going 100% on course. And when Keith comes in there like that and so dramatically plays this tape, and you hear your own voice on it, and like, oh my God, that's the phone call.
Jig is up.
I can completely identify with him, just like thinking, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is the worst possible outcome that could have happened from this.
That was his worst nightmare right there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Exactly.
But I also think that if it was that bad for me, and I'm not speaking for him because I don't know what he's going through, but I'm not going to go running through this back room and go ahead and get this weight and go over there. I'm just going to get in my car and go to hell home. I'm done. I know I'm done, so I'm just out. And if my mental health's that bad, then, like I said, we can do something later. But there's just seems like there's a whole lot more outs than scrounging up a weight, running back through this other door, back to this other room to get this jump rope and tie my 2 fancy knots, one around my neck, one around this, and run up there and dive head first in this this thing. It just, to me, it's too far fetched for me. Now he may have done it. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll add, to further kind of boost the murder possibility, you look at what he was leaving behind, and it's not like he was a single guy. You know, he had 2 kids and a wife. So,
and a couple properties, and stuff. So it's not like he was just, down on his luck, downtrodden, about almost homeless. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around the suicide angle. And I don't know who did what and how he ended up in that vat. And I definitely don't think all 6 of these guys are in on it. Maybe they knew about it. I don't know. But, I don't think they all deserve life in prison. I think 1 or 2 maybe, because it wouldn't take no time at all. Somebody to hit him in the head and go, okay, we're dragging him over here. How about go grab that weight and that rope that's hanging in that room and me to run to this vat and we chunk him in here. To me, that's more probable than the suicide angle. But, what do I know?
Sure.
Yeah, I think if I was going to commit suicide, I just, like Dale said, I would leave, go to my property, my cabin, and just take a bullet and be out. Because, it just seems like a horrible death to commit suicide that way. It just seems like torture.
Yeah, I mean, I know when you want to go, but it just, I don't know. I don't want to get into all that.
You just want to,
right?
I don't know.
It's kind of like setting yourself on fire thing, It's just, there's, I don't know.
Sure.
To answer that question, I've been thinking about that lately too, and I read an article on the internet recently that talked about people who jump off bridges, to commit suicide, and the ones that had survived, that they all say the moment they jumped, they immediately regretted doing it. And so I think maybe tying the weight is the way that once you drop it, there's no going back. You can't have that moment of regret. Tom maybe thought that if I don't tie this weight, I'm not gonna do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I should state too, after watching this film, the documentary, I was pretty much where you guys are at, where I was just sort of 50-50. Over the course of the last year, I think all of the Monfils 6 are innocent for sure. But my mom, who followed the case closely, during the trial, she's assured that they're all guilty. So she thinks that they are.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, I called some of my wife's friends up there, and I asked them about it. I'm like, yeah, we know about that. Are you going to cover that case? I'm like, yeah. And I said, actually, I was just trying to, get a feel for what you guys think. And they're like, guilty 100%. I'm like, ooh. I mean, she didn't even think about it. I mean, it's just that quick. And I'm like, okay, because I'm still on the fence. I don't know. And we probably, researched a lot more, which, they lived it. I don't know. But I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
It's just a messed up case. Yeah. I mean, it's where is your podcast going now as far as Tom Monfils? Tell us about the future of the Monfils 6 podcast.
Well, we're going through the book. About every 15 pages is an episode. We think we'll end up with perhaps 40 episodes. I believe there might be there is one other book that was written. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but I would think that maybe that's about their lives since they've been imprisoned. I can't imagine that anyone would have done a better job than the authors of the Monfils conspiracy, which I should say that their names, Dennis Gulkson and John Gay.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll probably get to episode 40, maybe the 50, and then we'll have we'll reveal in our final episodes what we thought happened to Monfils. Because I have a theory, but I just sort of want to tease it out throughout the rest of the series.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
I don't believe me a bit there. Have you guys talked to like Tom's brother or to Mike Pye or anybody that's local up there? Have you guys talked to him?
We have not yet, but as the podcast grows, I'm thinking that maybe we would reach out and ask them to be a guest at some point. From what we can tell, they all still live in the Green Bay area, and so for me, that's about a 2-hour drive. So it wouldn't be difficult to set up a in-depth interview. I would love to do it.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Is there any more about Tom you want to mention before we close out this episode? I mean, anything you want to say about the Tom Monfils case?
I think it's a 1 in a million case, and I think making a murder. So that was Stephen Avery. That was Manitowoc, Wisconsin, probably 30 miles from Green Bay. That was a huge Netflix series. And yeah. I think if someone's listening, I think this will be a huge Netflix or Hulu miniseries for sure. I think it's an incredible case, and I think we hope that you like and subscribe our podcast and join us every other week, every other Friday to hear.
Where can people find you guys at? On what platforms are you available on?
All the major podcast directories, as well as YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify for podcasters. What else, Mike?
We're on Apple Podcasts and Amazon Podcasts.
Okay.
Cool.
Any social networks? Facebook, Instagram?
Instagram for sure they are.
Yeah.
Instagram, yeah, the Monfils 6 for Instagram, sure. Yeah, please also subscribe to that as well.
Yeah, we will definitely put a link to your Instagram page on our feed, our show notes, and on our Facebook page and all of our socials, and share it and get people to join up or whatever they want to do and listen and check in, because you guys have done a deep dive, especially like you said, into the book, talking about Tom's case, and it's very fascinating, very informative, and I've listened to several episodes, and Dale's went through it a couple times.
Yeah.
And trying to keep up, and so it's pretty fascinating, guys, what you're doing and doing for this case.
Thanks. Like I said, I think I talked to you on the phone yesterday, and I said when I was 15 years old, I was in my electronics class in high school, and over the radio it came that the news that some paper worker in Green Bay had been thrown into a pulp vat and murdered. And to me, I just thought that was beyond evil. Like I couldn't imagine that happening.
Oh yeah.
And now all these years later, sort of, I'm trying to solve the case.
Yeah.
Very noble.
And I wanted to ask, I think it was Dale in the episode, you had said when you first came across this case, you were thinking, okay, they're guilty. The Monfils 6 are guilty, and then you started to question it. And I was kind of wondering what made you so sure that they were guilty in the beginning.
Well, when I first heard the story and what was going on, and him calling the cops and being so scared of this guy and everything, and then from what I was finding out from reading and listening, these guys jumped on him and threw him in the vat, and I'm like, yeah, they killed this guy sure as hell. They killed him, and then I watched the documentary, and I'm like, I don't know. And then I started listening to you guys, and then I went back and watched the documentary again and paid a lot more attention to it by myself. I went into my room and just watched it by myself. And then I'm like, hell, I don't know now. I'm just so damn confused especially after seeing his brother and Mike Pye together. And his brother's leaning toward, he don't know, he don't really think they did it either. So I'm like, man, I don't know now. I just keep getting back and forth. But it's just so hard for me to swallow that suicide pill, because it's just,
right.
If it was like run and jump off a cliff or something, maybe I could buy it. But jumping into a propeller vat full of pulp that you had to go extra steps and get this thing and tie it around your own neck.
Right.
It's not really, what do you call?
Normal.
Yeah, or just spontaneous. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
It's just not like a spontaneous thing, like if you just run and jumped into a boat prop or something that was running, and you're gone right then. It's just like you had to do 2 or 3 steps here. You had plenty of time to I don't know about this.
It was time to back out.
Yeah, I guess. And then even if you're going to drown yourself, I don't know. It just seemed like it's just weird to me. And I'm not saying he didn't do it. I just, like you said, I wrestle with it over and over, and I still don't know what happened. Well, I guess nobody does.
Sure, and there is of course the possibility too that we didn't really discuss a whole lot today. But I mean, sure, we believe that the Monfils 6 didn't commit this, and we've kind of been talking about either the Monfils 6 did it or Tom killed himself. But there's also other people at the mill who kind of have weird stories. You guys talked about that too, like the David Weiner guy.
Yeah.
They could be involved. There's also there's other characters who could have committed the homicide.
Oh, for sure.
And
especially if nobody liked him. Yeah,
kind of the core of the question, the main reason I asked it too was, so you thought that they were guilty. I'm assuming because they were convicted, and you trust the juries and judicial system to be correct. Is that kind of why you?
Yeah,
they were convicted.
No, not so much of that. Just following the story. The end thing with the jury, I don't know about, because all they know is what they were told. Mm-hmm. And to me, it all hinged on the guy signing the paper that he later said that Winkler made up all that stuff in it, and it wasn't true.
Yeah.
Because other than that, I don't think they convict him at all if they don't have that paper. And
they don't convict them at all unless they tried it all 6 at the same time.
Agreed. Yes, that's the only way they could do it and get them. And they knew that, and they can make up any story they want about saving taxpayers' money, but we know all that's a load of crap. That's the only way he knew he could possibly win this case.
And that's the thing too that I'll just throw in there is we were talking before about confronting the DA at the Q&A, that man will never admit anything. You know, when do you ever hear about a DA like saying, well, you know, maybe we got that wrong?
Yeah.
You know,
you're not going to hear it.
he'll never admit anything.
Nope.
No, definitely not.
Well, guys, this was very informative.
Yeah, it's great, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys coming on so short notice.
Throwing this back and forth. Yeah, this is great because I learned a lot, and I'm going to continue to listen to your podcast and keep up with what you guys are discovering and hear your thoughts on Tom Monfils.
Yeah, and you guys found some stuff too that I was not aware of too. You guys really, there were some little tidbits that I was like, oh, I didn't know that one. I think you guys really delved into the newspaper articles of the day a little bit more than I did personally. So, yeah, I learned a lot from your show as well about this case. There's so much more to learn.
Yeah, I think
I should say, listening to your episode yesterday, I thought it was excellent. I thought you did a really, really good job.
Thank you. I think we pronounced a lot of names wrong from up that way. Yeah,
Probably.
Yeah, I think we called him David Weiner instead of David Weiner.
Well, yeah, I don't know the correct way.
Yeah.
I just said it.
Yeah.
Wiener was more fun.
Yeah, it was a lot more fun to say.
Yeah. Well, and I liked you guys talking about the bubbler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I never heard that before. Never.
Yeah, me and my wife have lots of discussions on what things are called from here and from there. So, but definitely I know the bubbler.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Very, very cool. All right, guys.
Yeah, there's oh, sorry.
No, you good?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say with the bubbler, there's a famous T-shirt that you can get from like Milwaukee area tourist shops, and it says "Where's the bubbler" on it, and you can get magnets that say "Where's the bubbler."
Well, I gotta have
So
one.
it's something bigger around here.
Well, I have to have one of
I
them.
have to have one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, guys. We certainly appreciate you a bunch coming on the show and filling us in on some stuff. A whole bunch.
Yeah, that was great. I when you guys contacted Damon, I was like, wow, these people found us because we're pretty obscure, just getting going with this, and this is really the only case that we've done, and I think it's okay if I say this, Damon. I don't know if we have plans to cover any other cases. This is really the one that we wanted to focus on, and when you guys found us, that meant a lot. You know, that not only that you found us, but then you guys are just as interested in the case as we are, so it's good to get the word out there.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yep. Well, all right. Damon and Mike, man, we appreciate you guys a whole bunch.
Thanks so much, dudes.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a good
you.
night.
Goodbye.
All right,
You
bye-bye.
too. Thanks.
Dale, again, we want to thank Damon, Schneider, and Mike Putchel from the Monfils 6 podcast
Yeah, that was really good, man.
for coming on and just enlightening us on some things about the story with Tom Monfils and Keith Kutska.
That's right. They're right there in the middle of it.
Yeah, they're right there, and it's pretty fascinating.
Yes.
They're going to keep doing it and digging in and giving us some more episodes.
We'll just be following right along.
Yep, if anybody wants to follow them, their information will be in the show notes and on our socials. You can find them, and we recommend them. Check it out.
Or just punch in Monfils 6 podcast.
Yeah, on your favorite podcast platform.
That's right.
All right, bud, other than that, we're going to get out of here.
Whew, let's roll.
All right, we want everyone to be safe. Just please be careful and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is the
Crack
Crack House
House Chronicles.
Chronicles.